Hey guys, welcome in. It's Brad with College SportsCast, and we are presented by the Fanboys, Sideline Sports, and WSBN TV, Channel 30. All right, guys, looks like I'm back. We are SportsCast, and I am on location here at Bluegrass Brad's. And I have John Hammonds with me tonight. What's up, Hammonds?
How's it going, man?
Pretty good. SEC Media Days, day 3. And we're here to talk about a little bit of SEC Media Days.
Yeah, it's about over with.
Yep, today's day 3. We got one more day after today. Today's teams, that you got Alabama in there and Florida, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So you had some pretty good teams in there today. On the podium.
You had a nice set today.
Yeah. So today started out with Alabama at the podium. They were the first to go.
Yeah.
So we'll start out with Alabama.
Did you hear what Saban said today?
So I heard a whole lot of what Saban said today.
He said that he still feels like he's. He said he still feels like he's 39 years old. Yeah. Well, I mean,
he still does a lot of workout and a lot of stuff.
Look what he's done, though. I mean,
yeah.
At that age, I mean, he's won national championships. He's went to the SEC championships. I mean, he's racking up the trophies.
Have you seen videos of him doing push-ups with the players and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's even got a few of him.
He gets down there still.
He's even got a few of him dancing too in the recruits' living room. So he's got.
Yeah. I seen one or two of those too.
He's got a little bit of everything.
Doing like the line dance.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of everything going on with Saban.
Yeah. Yeah, I seen one of those too one day. So, today at SEC Media Days, usually when Nick Saban's in the room, there's like this aura.
Yeah.
And, he's the king,
Yeah, he's
today,
the king, so.
Yeah, but today felt a little different in the room. Saban himself kind of was a little bit more low key, a little bit more laid back. Mm-hmm. He was talking about, having the right expectations mm-hmm. for Alabama this year, which, most of the time Alabama's boasting and saying, we're number one, we're gonna win the title no matter what.
Mm-hmm. It was a little different, yeah.
But it feels a little different this time. Now, the players that I have up on the screen, they were still boasting and talking about winning titles and everything else.
Yeah,
and players were.
And there was a comment today that kind of could have rubbed Kentucky fans the wrong way. They asked one of the players, said he didn't know nothing about Kentucky except KFC. And, that that can rub somebody the wrong way, you know.
Yeah, that was Dallas Turner, if anybody was paying attention.
Yeah, he said, I don't know much about Kentucky except KFC, and it kind of, if you're a player that would kind of boost you up, it rubs you the wrong kind of way, you know.
Kentucky gets Alabama at their house this year, so when it comes time to play, that's the reason why that question was popped up.
Yeah, they play
is because they play
at the end of the year, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably November. I haven't seen the exact date, but they do play towards the end of the year. Yeah. And it's the first time Alabama has been to Lexington in like 12 or 13 years.
Yeah, it's been a while since they've been to Kroger Field.
Yeah. So the players was still kind of boasting. Latham, the offensive lineman, Latham, he was talking about, hey, we're here to win a title and all that kind of stuff,
Well, it feels different. And I tell you why it feels different is because now it's not really Alabama now. You've got Georgia in there too now. And it feels like, Georgia's took over the SEC and that reign of getting the recruits, getting the players, winning the championships. And it just feels like it's different now that Kirby Smart has got Georgia on the high road now.
Some of the talking heads, I turned it on SEC Network afterwards, and some of the talking heads are saying Alabama might be number 3 in the SEC.
That's what they're saying. And the biggest thing with Alabama this year, I think, is going to be the quarterback position. I think their defense is going to be really good. But at the end of the day, Milroe, I think that's his name. Was it Milroe, the quarterback?
Milroe was the one that come in last year.
How does he respond with Bryce Young gone? Is my big take on it. How is he going to?
So, talking about the QB situation, Saban was asked today, and it's still unsettled as far as what he's telling, everybody.
Saban ain't going to give you much information. Saban's always been like that.
As far as what he's saying, it's still a 3-horse race.
Yeah, he's going.
You got the transfer from Notre Dame. Yeah, you got the transfer from Notre Dame. You got Milroe, the one you're talking about, and you got Ty Simpson.
Ty Simpson's the one that could be the wild card.
Well, so afterwards on SEC Network, Greg McElroy said he thinks that Ty Simpson is going to ultimately win the job.
He mentioned that the other day, and he's the wild card. The biggest question mark is, like I said, at quarterback, because they're going to have the receivers, they're going to have the running backs. I think their defense is going to be special again. Their defense actually wasn't up to Alabama standards last year, but they brought a lot of guys back. They did lose Will Anderson, which was a major piece to their defense, but at the same time, Alabama is sort of like, Georgia. They just reload the talent and they just throw guys in there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. 2 of the 3 guys that was there at SEC Media Days today are defensive player. You have Dallas Turner, who is preseason first team All SEC. He's an edge guy that's kind of going to be filling that role. And then you got Kool-Aid McKinstry, and
what a name, right?
Yeah, Kool-Aid. I mean, when you got Kool-Aid, I mean, come on now.
You're killing it right now, right?
I mean, and he's a DB for them and is a star player as well. So I think Alabama on the defensive side of the ball is going to be great.
Yeah, they're going to be good. Yeah.
And on offense, I think there's still a few question marks.
They are.
And that's not normal.
No, not at Alabama, And it all started last year. They didn't have the year they expected. They lost to Tennessee on the road. They lost it on the road to LSU. There was just a lot of miscombobulation games last year. They they just didn't sync together. They didn't play with the talent that they normally live up to. It was just an odd year to be an Alabama fan.
Yeah, I mean, that's not normal for Alabama to begin a season. So it's, you go back to like, you had Jalen Hurts, then you had Tua, then you had won a Heisman Trophy, and now they're all gone. Now you're setting, and you're kind of questioning, where the quarterback, a normal thing for the last like 6, 7 years.
It's not
at Alabama. So you kind of look at their schedule, and of course they play regulars out of the West. They play Texas this year again, which will be a big game in the second week against Texas. That's going to be a telltale game in the second week of the game, or second week of the season.
It'll give them an idea what,
and have to play Texas.
It'll give them an idea where they're at early in the year.
Last year Brock won out on them.
That game was all over the place, if we're being honest, from an officiating standpoint.
And Alabama kind of got lucky, but Bryce Young did make some plays late in the game,
he made some very good plays with his feet. Yep. So.
Yeah, he did. So, like I said, Texas game. Mississippi schools, and by week 5, I think we'll have a pretty good feel of where Alabama's going to be for the season.
Yeah, we'll pretty much know where they're at by then.
Yeah, by week 5, of course, late game that we were talking about, it's November the 11th. Last game of the year.
Yeah.
Alabama in my preseason top.
I do too.
I actually have them picked 4th in my.
I think they'll be back in the college football playoff this year. I think last year was an anomaly. It wasn't normal from Alabama standards, and I think Saban will reiterate that with his team, and I think they'll get back to the college football playoff, and they'll be back to the Alabama standard of playing for a title again. Which at Alabama, you're going to play for a title pretty much every year.
I haven't looked at everything. I'm ready to say they're going to make the college football playoff, but I do have them preseason number 4. I have LSU for 5. So, they're right there
that's
together.
Another team that's
and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's another team that we discussed the other night, LSU, that could be a real wild card in that department.
Yeah, I think they have a real shot at the SEC West with Alabama for the 2 teams, I think.
They do.
Yeah. We'll move on and go to the next team that came to the podium today. And the next team that came to the podium today was Arkansas and Sam Pittman. And how do you not have some fun with Sam Pittman, honestly?
Sam Pittman's a guy, man.
Is there a more likable head coach in the SEC than Sam Pittman?
Probably not. Maybe Coach Leach was a likable guy last year. Sad to hear about his passing. But next to Coach Leach, it had to be Sam Pittman, because Pittman cares, and that's the one thing you watch during games. He supports his players. He goes out into the community and does all these things for these kids. Arkansas didn't have the expected end that they wanted to last year. I think a lot of that had to do – I think KJ Jefferson got hurt towards the end of the year. Just a lot of things went wrong for Arkansas last year. And, at the end of the day, you regroup, you figure things out, and you see where you're at.
Well, Arkansas started out the season pretty strong, and they dealt with some injuries. And, and they didn't quite have this they wanted to have last year.
No, Arkansas. They didn't. They started out really great, and then it just kind of – they got a few injuries here and there, and they just never could regroup,
But they've got some pieces on offense, I mean, on KJ Jefferson, they brought in a lot of good wide receivers. They have Rock Enders, one of the best running backs in the SEC.
And I tell you,
they have absolutely a great offense. It's really going to come down to defense.
And they absolutely drilled the transfer portal. Them and Kentucky was probably the two best, in my opinion, that truly went out and got into the transfer portal and knocked it out.
They did, absolutely. They brought in several wide receivers and top notch and a bunch of other players as well. I think this is going to tell the story for this Arkansas team.
Yeah, their defense is going to have to get better.
They're going to be in that second, third, fourth spot in the SEC. They're going to have to play some defense to do that.
They're going to have to. Their defense, if we're being frank, last year was atrocious. Their defense is just going to have to get better. It's just going to have to. Barry Odom didn't have the season
outside of the line position last year.
The secondary was really it was to be desired. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the linebacker position last year, their defense was terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty
they
tough.
Gave up all kinds of stuff.
They did.
So I think that's what's going to tell the story this year.
And I think a lot of that transpired right after the Texas A&M game, when they missed the field goal. After that, it just seemed like it went downhill quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel you on that, But kind of getting back to Sam Pittman, I mean, every time he's around and says something, he brings up beer. And, I mean, he's just an all-around likable guy.
Yeah, he's honestly, like that uncle you meet. He's like that uncle you meet at the barbecue. He's the kind of dude you don't really know him.
Yeah, I mean, he's the kind of dude you can crack open, like just sit,
Yeah.
Just sit and talk.
He's pretty great at that.
And he would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many normal dudes like us could just walk up to SEC head coach and open up a beer and say, "Hey, man, what's up?" But you could probably do that
exactly.
with Sam Pittman.
There's quite a bit that wouldn't do that,
You could probably do that with Sam Pittman.
You could.
All right. So have you taken Arkansas' schedule?
I couldn't hear you. What'd you say?
Said, have you taken a look at Arkansas's schedule?
I haven't. I haven't looked at it. I haven't looked at much football whatsoever yet. I've been still in Major League Baseball mode. I'm not completely changed over to football yet, but I will be.
So their first two games are, their first two games they should be winning. They do by you in the third game, and then they SEC play at LSU and Texas A&M at Arkansas. So that's two pretty tough to open SEC play with. And it don't get a whole year. In the West, you have a pretty tough schedule. Where do you see Arkansas kind of fitting in the SEC West this year?
They play Western Carolina, play BYU. Those two are at Arkansas. Then they go to LSU. I think LSU's due one for them from last year's loss. The A&M game's another game that Arkansas want to get back. They go to Ole Miss. Then they go to Alabama, which that's a pretty tough stretch. And then I think – I'm not real sure the schedule after that. It's Mississippi State at home. Then they go to Florida, Auburn, Florida International, and then Missouri. So they avoid Tennessee this year. So how many wins do you see on that schedule? You see 7 or 8?
Well, so the first two are definite wins. They really should beat BYU, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know.
You just don't ever know.
That's 3.
A non-conference game's hard to really.
That's 3. If they win the 4 non-conference games, then then you got of course you got to beat. You got LSU, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Alabama. They do play Florida, which I think they can beat Florida.
Yeah, Florida, in my opinion, is going to have another down season.
They play Auburn, which shouldn't. They play Missouri at home, be a win. I can see 7 or 8 wins on the schedule for Arkansas this year somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't looked it over, and made my final picks yet or nothing.
I probably won't get into
somewhere
football.
In that range.
I probably won't get into football till probably August 1st. That's usually when I start figuring out football and wondering what's going to happen. Because from there, you only got about 16 days left. And I start figuring out the lineups and the schedules and whatnot. Because it's still pretty early, though. Like, it's still what, middle of July? Almost the end of July, something like that?
Yeah. Like I said, I haven't looked at everything. But when you go through that and kind of just eyeball it for the first time, I would say somewhere in the 7 or 8 win range would be a good season for Arkansas. And in that 3rd or 4th position, maybe in the SEC West.
Yeah, it would be a really good season for them.
I think that would be a pretty good season for them. All right. So we're going to go on to Florida.
I'll say this. This next team is very interesting. And I'll tell you why, because I'm going to give you a hot take this early. And I know I might get slammed by a bunch of Gator fans, and that's okay because I can handle it. But this Gator team might not be as good as it was last year.
You might be right. You might be right. Honestly, I don't expect this Gator team to be very good.
And if you look at their schedule, where's their 6 wins at?
I know.
I'm being honest, and I'm a big fan of Billy Napier. I like Billy Napier, but where is the 6 wins going to come from? Because you look at this schedule, okay? They play at Utah, which they open up the season at Utah on a Thursday night on ESPN. Then they play McNeese State, which they should win that one, right? Then they play Tennessee at home, which it's at the Swamp, so that's a major factor. So then they play Charlotte, and then they go to Kentucky. Then they play Vanderbilt. And then it starts getting a little hairy. Play at South Carolina, Georgia, Arkansas, and at LSU. And then in between that, they play Florida State, which will be much improved. I mean,
Florida State's a top 10 team in the country for most people this year.
And Florida goes on the road, and then Florida goes on the road to Missouri, where a place they don't really play well. Well, they haven't in the past. They've had some games where
they struggled with Vandy last year. Kentucky's beat them 2 years in a row. I mean, this Florida team, being
honest, there's a chance they could win 6 games and go to a bowl.
I think, to be honest with you, man, and I'll go ahead and put this up. You talking about kind of so I'll go ahead and put this up on the screen too. My thing is this with this Florida team. Does Billy Napier still kind of seem out of place to you with the Florida Gators? Because I was watching some of it today, and there's just a feel where, to me, he still seems kind of out of place.
Yeah, because he's coming from the Sun Belt Conference to the SEC. It's a completely different animal. And the recruiting, let's be honest, and that's one positive thing the Florida Gators can mount their eyes on, is the recruiting has been really good recently. But you got to take that recruiting and build it on the field.
The recruiting for is really good.
It's really good. Yes, that's what I was getting at. And it's just going to take time.
Yeah.
And Florida is sort of like Alabama fans, Georgia fans. They lived through the Spurrier days. And everything was like an automatic fix. It has to be right now. And Florida is not the Florida of old. And that's what they're expecting. They're expecting it just to happen right now, and it's just not going to work that way. Okay, let me give you this. Let me give you this little hot take. Well, it's not a hot take. When was the last time you heard of a Kentucky team beating Florida, 4 of the last 5 years? 3 maybe?
Three out of 5, 2 in a row.
That just doesn't happen at Florida. It just does not.
No,
Florida.
It absolutely hasn't.
If you're a Florida fan,
for the last.
If you're a Florida fan, though, you don't lose to Kentucky. Losing to Kentucky is like losing to Vanderbilt. You just don't let it happen. But, and even in the other games, the Georgia games.
This Florida team, though, John, they're going to have their time, Kentucky and Vanderbilt and Missouri. Those are not going to be cakewalk games.
Knowing that they go on the road to Kentucky, if if I remember correctly. They play on the road again this year. So
They do.
The biggest question to me for Florida is the quarterback play. Graham Mertz, I'm not saying he's a horrible quarterback. I'm not saying he's just not. How do I say this?
Flashy. He does have the,
He's just not a flashy guy.
He doesn't have the moxie.
He's got a lot of and he plays hard, but how's he going to compete against the teams like Georgia, Tennessee, even Kentucky now is getting better. The Missouris. Oh, shoot, even Vanderbilt's going to be better this year. Not saying they'll get a bowl game, but they're going to be much improved. But,
yeah,
that's a question mark for me. That offense is a question mark.
So I got the question up on the screen. Does Billy Napier need winning results in 23 in a second season? Can Florida?
I think he has to be.
Fans be with another 6-6 or losing season?
No, because what's going to happen is if they start losing like that again, they're going to be calling for his head. And you know how Florida fans are. And I got a bunch of Florida buddies, but that's a passionate fan base, and that's a football state. And you just do not lose in the swamp. You just don't, because they're used to winning. And when you're not used to winning, fans can be fickle. A la Kentucky basketball.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kentucky basketball is the same way. If you're not winning, you're roadkill on the side of the road, man. That's how I feel about it. And right now, there's not a lot of, I just don't see a lot of improvement for this Florida team. I just don't. And does that mean to say they won't get to a bowl game? No,
I just wanted to bring up there and ask you, I just wanted to ask what your thoughts were. Does he survive a second down year?
Here's the issue with me. They've not been competitive with Georgia in quite some time. The talent has been overwhelming. You look at last year, Florida got annihilated out there in Jacksonville. They just could not, they're not even on that level anymore. And Florida used to be on that level. Florida was on that level every single year in and year out. And you could just look at it from a football fan perspective and see that they're just not on that level anymore. And until they get to that level and that recruiting level, I think it's going to be the same. And that's their rival. That's like Taylor said last night. Florida and Georgia that's a big game for Florida fans because they used to win that game. And now that their talent is not up there par with Georgia, it's a big deal to their fans that they get back to winning that game because that's a big game for their year.
Yeah, Napier brought up again today that they might have to go away from Jacksonville, and that's kind of a big deal too for the Florida-Georgia game.
It is. It's a real big deal.
Yeah. I think Napier's wanting to get it away from Jacksonville and start doing home and home. He brought it up last year too.
He's wanting to get away from the neutral stuff where everybody gets to attend. And I get that home field advantage. I get that. I think because they used to play that way.
Yeah.
Back when they had Werfel and all of them, I think they played there. And then they moved it to Jacksonville. I think, what was it, 97 maybe? Yeah, just a few times they played. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but it was there before that, and they just played it away from Jacksonville a few times, 2 or 3 times maybe. It wasn't very many.
They did.
Yeah. But anyway, I look for Florida to be in the bottom 2 or 3 teams in the SEC East. I really do.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
And they were last year.
Them and Missouri is my 2. I think South Carolina will be much improved. I just think them and Missouri will be the odd 2 out, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think Kentucky, Tennessee, and South Carolina are all better teams.
I do. I agree.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. I had some people picking top 25s. And some of these people are putting Florida in their top 25. Like I have seen Florida as high as like 17 or something in their top 25. And I just don't see it, man. I've been too close to it.
I don't either, but
and I don't see how.
Maybe we're missing something. I mean, I don't know. I don't see it with the way the roster was constructed coming into this year.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, they got some nice pieces, transfer portal. They got the quarterback, but there's just a lot to be desired there. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I agree with you. The biggest difference in Florida, in my opinion, is this. They still have quite a bit of talent in their first string. They just don't have – they have a big drop-off in their second and third strings compared to what they used to years ago.
Yeah, the depth's not there.
When they were dominant every year. Yeah. When they were dominant every year, you know, they could just plug and play, and it didn't make any difference. I don't think Florida has that right now.
I don't think they do either.
Yeah, you know, that's one of my biggest things with them. So, all right, we will move on to our team. You and I are both Kentucky fans, so
is this the last?
Mark
is this the last?
Took the podium.
Is this the last team of the night?
Yeah, it's the last team of the night. I've got a couple of teams I'm going to bring up afterwards, but we're getting close.
Okay.
So Mark Stoops, the podium today, was the last team, and he brought with him Cox, J.J. Weaver, and Oxendine, defensive linemen, and they were all there today and doing the press. And I did catch all of Mark Stoops. Yeah.
No fingers.
I did catch all of Mark Stoops. 6 fingers.
I joke about that, but 6 fingers. But you know what? That he takes that in pride. You know what I mean? He takes that and he thinks it's a big deal to him. It's a big deal to him. He had just recently lost his dad, if I'm not mistaken. J.J. Weaver's went through a lot at UK, and I think J.J. Weaver's due for a breakout season. He's due for one.
He's talented. He's just been hurt off and on too.
Talented. He's very talented.
Yeah.
And you know, I look at the schedule. Okay. I was going to look at the schedule real quick. I look at the schedule, man, and I'm going to be honest with you. This could be a 10-win year. Maybe 9.
Okay. I said that last year and it didn't happen.
Well, okay, let me just go at it here. They play Ball State to start the year out, which that's most likely.
I think we can definitely be 5-0 headed into Georgia.
They should be 5-0 headed to Georgia. Then they play Missouri at home.
I think we can be.
And then they play Tennessee. Yeah. And then they play at Mississippi State. Then Alabama comes to town. Then they play at South Carolina and at Louisville, in which South Carolina is going to be much improved. So that's not a cakewalk in Williams-Brice Stadium. That's just not. Never is.
Louisville's going to be improved and has and Brom has all season long to get his guys going.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So Louisville won't be an absolute cakewalk at the end of the season.
But if you're looking at that,
I do think.
But if you're looking at that schedule,
I do think that we win that game.
Mm-hmm. But if you look at that schedule, starting out, you should be 5-0 going to Georgia. No doubt.
I agree. But then it gets tough after that.
It does. And guess what?
Missouri.
They have another bye week, and guess who they play after the bye week?
Tennessee.
The Tennessee Volunteers. Every year. Every year.
It seems like it's here.
And I'm going to tell you this, and people get on me about it, and that's fine. But until we start beating Tennessee consistently, we're nowhere near them. I mean, facts are facts. Until you beat Tennessee on a consistent basis, Tennessee, we have no reason to sit back and talk trash to Tennessee fans.
No, not really.
I mean,
not to talk trash on them, no.
Just to aggravate them and stuff. But this year, if you're going to be
it's always fun to pick on them about their record versus Florida and Alabama and all that kind of stuff. But
I'll say this:
the truth is as a Kentucky fan, you can't say too damn much
about this game. If they're going to get Tennessee, this is the year to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's the year to do it because you're at home. They don't have Hendon Hooker anymore, which Joe Milton will be a lot better than people think. I don't think they have the receivers they once had, but they got some guys coming up.
They don't have the receiver. That's going to be a big thing.
But they do have that their defense is going to be much improved. And you got them at home. You should at least compete in that game. But you need to beat Missouri.
Well, we get Tennessee at home and Alabama at home late in the year. So, I mean, that's two really big games.
The key factor between that, though, is Kentucky has Georgia, and then they play Missouri, and then the bye week. They can't lose that game against Missouri going into the bye week because if you look at the past –
if we could be 6-1, if we could be 6-1 going into the bye week.
Well, you look at it.
Then we have a real shot at kind of maybe a special season.
It was Texas A&M a couple years ago, I think. We went into the bye week and we just collapsed. And then we went into the Ole Miss bye week last year after that and collapsed. It seems like after every bye week we collapse. I don't know what we do on the bye week, if we play cards or chess or whatever, but we just do not look like a team when we come back to play football. It seems like that every year.
This is
I don't know if
it's
so. But
so today on the podium, Liam Cohen was a popular question. A lot of people was asking questions about Liam Cohen, about Leary at quarterback. And then Stoops himself brought up Brad White several times and was kind of giving Brad White the props that he deserves for being one of the best DCs in the SEC.
Well, and I tell you, Brad White, everybody got on him a little last year, especially during the Tennessee game. But you got to remember, we had a lot of guys injured last year at times. We had a lot of guys out. We didn't have, there was guys playing out of position at times. It was just a rough year.
Still finished top 15 in the country.
We did.
In defense.
A lot of that had to do with the Walker kid up front from Michigan. He was a big force in the middle. I'm going to tell you something right now. He's going to be a top 10 pick, 15.
And he was picked as a preseason All-American, SEC All-American.
Mm-hmm. Which they ended up losing.
First team.
I think Justin Rogers, he went to Auburn. But Justin Rogers he was a good player, great guy. I think it was just there were some issues there with his placement where he needed to be, and I think he made the right choice going to Auburn, give him opportunity because
he
Kentucky
wasn't going
just
to
had
play
too
in
much.
front of Walker.
No, I mean he wasn't going to get Walker's minutes, and it was just better for both sides. So,
yeah.
But this Leary
Oxidine,
this Leary deal. I've told people all summer, if the offensive line can be improved, which I think they will be, they added some guys in the portal. If they let Leary stand back there in the pocket with what Kentucky's got at receiver, this could be a dangerous offense. Very dangerous.
And nobody's talking about. Everybody wants to talk about the receiver brought up today, but I'm going to tell y'all right now a name to watch in the passing game. McLean, the running back, out of the backfield with Leary and Cohen. I think they're going to want to hit. He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield, and I think we're going to see use him.
Well, and they got the Davis kid from Vanderbilt, and they got Davis too. He's going to be a good threat out of the backfield from Vanderbilt.
As far as a runner, but I think they're going to use McLean as a outlet passer, and he's going to be in the passing situation.
And you got to remember, they also got that kid from NC State that played with Devin Leary.
They did, and he was a pretty good back as well. Yeah,
Leary to me, if he's healthy and he's throwing the ball the way he should be, he's a Heisman dark horse. Because you remember the year, was it a couple years back?
He has the talent, but Kentucky's going to have to be 10, 11 wins for him to be a Heisman contender.
But what I'm saying, he had that potential the year that he had all those yards for NC State that one season. He was throwing it all over
2 years ago. He had 35 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions, 3,500 yards almost.
That tells you something right there. And you add him.
He had 35 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions.
And you add him with
34 something.
And you add him with Cohen to that offense and the way they try to run things.
It could be real special.
It could be.
I mean, it really could be real special this year. It really could.
And they get Barry and Brown back.
Cohen was
Barry and Brown.
You get Dane Key, Barry and Brown. You got Tavion Robinson back. You got Durkle or whatever his name is that's from Lexington there that that'd be a nice one coming out on the passing.
And I'm not sure.
You've got 3 tight ends that I think they can catch the ball and they'll be used.
I'm not sure about Crowdus now. I don't know what the deal is on him yet. So where he got in trouble this past summer. So I don't know.
That's the one I was talking about.
He was part of that group as well. So I don't really know where they're going to use him at. So
I mean, one of the things today that Mark Stoops was talking about was taking responsibility. He took responsibility for the line play last year, and he talked about getting back to our physical play up front, protecting the quarterback and stuff like that. So, and they brought in some guys to do that. I mean,
they did,
and
that's what I said earlier. Them in Arkansas, literally, they pounced on the transfer portal. They both did a good job on the portal.
Yeah, I think Kentucky and Arkansas probably did the best job in the SEC in the transfer portal. Maybe Lane Kiffin, because he got a couple of quarterbacks to come.
Yeah,
and a few
Ole Miss did pretty good.
Lane Kiffin did pretty good in it as well. That would be my 3 that I would say did the best in the SEC in the transfer portal. That would be my 3. Texas A&M lost a crap ton in the transfer portal. Yeah. But
and some of those guys,
if Kentucky,
some of those guys was 5-star recruits that Texas A&M lost.
Oh yeah,
Like
that A&M lost. Yeah. Oh yeah. If Kentucky can get back to controlling the offensive line of scrimmage, then with Leary and Cohen and Berrien Brown and Key and Ray Davis and a couple of these tight ends, I think this could be a special offense. And Brad White is going to have a good defense. You can write it down.
He always does.
Listen to me. I'll tell you all right now, if you're paying attention to listen, there has only been 3 teams that have been in the top 5 of the SEC on defense for the last 5 years. I'll give y'all a huge guess of who these 3 teams are. Georgia, Alabama, and Kentucky. Every year. They've been in the top 5 in the SEC in defense for the last 5 years.
That's saying
last year they finished number 2 in the SEC in defense. Number 2.
So let's get on to the schedule real quick. Where do you see the wins coming?
All right. Well, so I think there is a good opportunity for Kentucky to be 5-0 heading into the Georgia game. We open with Ball State and a couple of small, so I think there's
you know why he does that, don't you?
Yeah,
he's trying. The SEC schedule is brutal.
Yeah, and he's trying to build some momentum is what he's trying to do. So 3-0 is an absolute must, okay, to start out with. And then we go to Vandy.
Yeah.
And we owe them an ass whooping, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, we do. Actually,
I'm not even going to hide about it. From last year, we owe them an ass whooping. So I'm expecting for us to go to Vandy and to play some damn football. I'll just be honest with you. All right.
And Ray
then
Davis,
you get Florida at home.
Well, and we get Ray Davis going back to Vanderbilt. He needs to have a night of his life.
He does. And I'm telling you, we owe them an ass whooping. I'm just being honest.
And then we play
Florida. Then you get Florida back at home after us winning the last 2 at home and away, the last 2. And Florida should be kind of still down. I think it's a game we should win, and that puts us at 5-0 to going to Athens to play Georgia.
Play the mighty Bulldogs.
Now, do I expect that game to be a loss? I probably do, okay? Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and act like that we should beat Georgia. All right? Georgia's the number 1 team in the country. Everybody expects them to be back in the college football playoff and possibly win a 3rd consecutive title this year, okay? So I'm not that crazy, and I'm not that big of a fan that I'm going to be like, yeah, we're going to go there and win.
Yeah.
But so, that puts us at 5-1, and then we turn around and play Missouri. John, is that game at home or is it at Missouri? It's at home.
It's a home game, yeah.
That's what I thought. So that's another win that we should not lose at home.
And Missouri, if I remember correctly, they never play good in Lexington. Never do.
They don't. And it's a game we usually win pretty decently. in Lexington. So we should be 6-0, and then we head into our bye week.
You mean 6-1, the Georgia game?
I mean 6-1. Yes, yeah, 6-1, and then we head into the bye week.
Then comes the dreaded bye week.
Yeah, and then back after the bye week and get Tennessee in Lexington at Kroger Field.
Does it get any easier than that?
That's going to be a big game. This is a stretch. This is a stretch here. We play Tennessee home, Mississippi State away, where we have not won in like 10 or 12 years on the road. It's just not a place Kentucky plays good. Mississippi State is not. And then we get Alabama at home and then South Carolina on the road. That's the next 4 games.
Yep.
That's a stretch that just how good of a season Kentucky's going to have. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, that's a stretch of games.
Well,
you know, can Kentucky go 2 in that 4-game stretch?
And I'll say this, you know, with the added idea that next year's 2024, Texas and Oklahoma join, and we go to Texas next year, which should be interesting. Because I don't think we've ever played Texas.
It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be neat to go to a place you've never really.
You're talking about that stretch of schedule. Can we go 2-2 out of those 4 games?
We can, I think.
Mississippi on the road, and Tennessee and Alabama at home.
It just depends if something happens in Mississippi State where somebody falls over a ice cooler or does something wacky. Because every time we play there, something wacky happens. It's like there's nothing. Yeah. We end up losing a game that we should be winning, you know? And I don't know.
And usually Kentucky loses 1 or 2 games. If you want to know the God's honest truth, even as a diehard Kentucky fan, we usually lose 1 or 2 games every year that we really should not lose.
Yeah. Vanderbilt last year,
i.e. Vandy in South Carolina last year at home.
Yeah, I was at the South Carolina game, and that was the most embarrassing game I have ever witnessed in my life. So
that's the game Levis set out, right? Hurt.
Yeah, he set out that he was hurt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
We're almost to 60 minutes, my man.
Yeah. So those 4 games, you finish the season against Louisville, and that's on the road. That's at Louisville this time.
Yeah.
And that'll be there all season long, you know, and he's going to get Louisville turned around.
He is.
And looking at their schedule, I looked at Louisville's schedule. They have a pretty cakewalk schedule. They don't play Clemson, and they don't play Florida State this time. So
they don't. No.
I think Louisville has a chance of being 8-4 this year. I really do. Looking at their schedule. Their toughest game is Notre Dame. They do play Notre Dame.
They play Georgia,
but they do not play
Georgia Tech. They play Georgia Tech, Murray State, Indiana, Boston College, NC State, home against Notre Dame, at Pitt, Duke. Yeah. I mean, there's a chance they could win 8 games in there. Maybe
I'm telling you, they could easily be 8-4 this year. know their schedule's cake.
Yeah.
I'm not even playing. So expect to see Louisville with a pretty good record in that game is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And we at home for Louisville, and it's a game we absolutely should win and finish off a 8 or 9 win season.
Yeah.
John said that we could get to 10, but that means we got to beat Georgia, Alabama, or Tennessee and not lose any other.
Yeah, that's right.
If we get to 10 wins.
The dam's got to break.
We got to beat one. We got to beat one of Georgia, Tennessee, or Alabama to get to 10 wins season and not lose any of these other games that we should win.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's here this year for Kentucky would be 8 or 9 wins. That's my opinion.
I do. Mm-hmm.
I think 8 or 9 regular season would definitely be a success this year with the schedule. And it's not going to get any easier. We were just talking about Texas and Oklahoma coming. We go to Texas next year in 2024. I'm sure in 2025 we will play probably against Oklahoma in the Stoops Bowl.
Yeah.
That's going to be the Stoops Bowl.
Can I say something real quick before we log off?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say to thanks to Brad for letting me back on. I had a really tough time recently losing my grandparents, and I appreciate you all for letting me come back and do this, because this is all I care about. This is all I care about, working and doing this with Brad, because we want to make this something. Like, we want to make this a big thing. And like, sometimes you got to put personal things over to the side to reach the plans that you want to make. So I just want to say thanks to everybody that supports me and does that. And to the fanboys does a really great job. He's knocking it out of the park. I keep forgetting his name to save my life. Who's the fanboys guy? Jay. I don't know why I keep forgetting his name, but Jay's doing a really good job with the fanboys. He started out with nothing, and he's built it up to everything, and that's a big thing that he's growing there. So.
Absolutely, man. It's good to have you back. I'm glad you're back with us. And we may do some rotating with some of our this year, and not have quite so many people on, and kind of keep it, a little bit more personable.
Well, and we're gonna have that girl.
Do some rotating around.
Well, we're gonna have that girl.
Yeah, so
the girl's gonna be coming on.
Yes, she's going to be on our debate show. Our debate show is now called the Big Fuss Show. We've got a new name for that show, so look for that. That's kind of going to be our hot topic in debate show, and we're going to add a female to the mix. So we are going to have a little contrast with the male-female stuff, and we're going to have some fun this year. It's good to have John back with us. One last thing. Was there any surprises today at the podium? And my thing is this: was it a surprise that carrot cake was Nick Saban's favorite cake? Was that a surprise?
Not really.
Because he started doing an analogy about his quarterback play and how you have to wait for the cake to get done. His grandma would always tell him when he was growing up, he'd have to wait for the cake to get. So after all that, the next question was, speaking of that, what's your favorite cake? And Nick said, oh, that's easy, carrot cake.
Yeah. there wasn't really nothing that stood out to me really. I was kind of surprised
One
that
more thing, real
Stoops.
quick, on
I was just kind of surprised Stoops brought up
Go
Brad
ahead.
White. Usually, usually they don't bring that stuff up, but Stoops is notorious for stuff like that. Though he's known for that.
He really did. He played and wanted to give Brad the proper, best DC in the SEC. So
how did I know?
One thing that happened yesterday.
How did I know you was going to bring this up?
So one thing that happened yesterday in the SEC media day was the officials announced that they are changing the roughing the kicker. And this is basically designed after the Kentucky-Missouri game where it went over the punter's head, Goodfellow's head. And Goodfellow chased it down and kicked it, picked it up and kicked it, and still got like a 40-yard kick out of it. But when he did, he got drilled, and they called a roughing the kicker on it because he was still inside the tackle box. Even though it was over his head, he was still inside the box. So they blew the whistle and threw the flag and called a roughing the kicker on it because they did blow him up. Matter of fact, they blew him up so bad that he got hurt on the play and didn't play the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. All right. So, but they are changing this call now where that won't be called again. They're changing it where if the punter has to go 5 yards away from where he's starting, they will not call roughing the kicker anymore. So what do you think about that?
I think it's necessary. It'd just knock out the rugby style kicks.
Yeah.
Goodbye to the rugby.
It kind of does. Yeah. Yeah. It kind of does knock out the rugby style kicks. Yeah.
And the running clock, I agree with that because these games take too long. If you've ever been to a UK football game or anywhere, Alabama, Tennessee, the game is just so long. And then they have the little referee that stands down there at the edge of the field and he waits on the TV. There's just so many commercials. There's just so much going on, and it just takes forever. And I think that's a big thing in college football. So
I've always kind of liked that the clock stops in college football after the first downs. It's different from any of the other football. Excuse me, I have to sneeze. It's different from any of the other football. So it's going to take me a minute to get used to it, I think. But, when you watch NFL, that's not the way it happens. So it's really not going to be that big of a deal probably. So I am glad they are keeping it where it stops at the 2 minutes of each half. So, these teams can still do their 2 minute, their 2 minute offense and that kind of stuff, and the clock will stop. But I had to bring up the kicker stuff, John. We're talking about Kentucky tonight. And it happened. Actually, Goodfellow got blown up so hard on that hurt.
Yeah, bad. Yeah, it was pretty rough. So.
Yeah, he didn't play the year after that game.
No, I won't.
All right,
I won't
guys.
be here tomorrow
night.
I won't be here tomorrow night. Speaking of which,
right.
So
I'll be here with somebody. I'm not exactly sure who yet, but I've got a few other guys that I can, talk to and that kind of stuff. But I'll be here with somebody. And tomorrow night is Ole Miss, South, and Tennessee, and those three teams will finish up the SEC Media Days. So we'll have Lane Kiffin, Shane Beamer, and Josh Heupel tomorrow, and the players that they are bringing. Mm-hmm. So Lane Kiffin in any media setting should be worth talking about. Mm-hmm. He's always good when any kind of media setting. Lane Kiffin is. Beamer's not bad himself. Mm-hmm. And then you got Heupel. And you got some sanctions come out this week with Tennessee. I think we'll hear a little bit about some of that stuff tomorrow with Tennessee there. Bring that up again tomorrow with the Tennessee deal and talk about some of these sanctions. And when we bring up Tennessee, I want to say this about the whole Tennessee thing. And everybody is talking a whole lot about Milton, Joe Milton, okay? And they should. Joe Milton, though, if Joe Milton was to struggle, Tennessee has the top quarterback, 5-star kid sitting there. Do you think there's a chance that we see the 5-star freshman come in and play this year if Milton struggles?
I don't.
What do you think?
I think he might get in towards some mop-up time, but I think it's Joe Milton's to lose right now. So.
I'd bring it up.
Oh, you're good.
But we will wrap up our show. We'll wrap up our show tonight. I appreciate everybody and everybody being on with us. And we will finish up our series tomorrow night, July 20th, 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 Eastern. And we will finish up with these 3 teams on the screen for SEC Media Days. And then, right before we leave, I will say this. After tomorrow night, if I can get this to come up real quick. After tomorrow night, the next time you will see us on will be August 1st, and we will be doing our Pac-12 preview show. That'll be a 2-night, August 1st. Each Tuesday night in August, bring you a different Power 5 conference preview show. We'll do some analysis, break down the schedule, and pick their regular season schedule and wins and losses. So our first one up, the Power 5 Conference Pac-12 on August 1st. John, you're going to prep for that one for me, right?
Because if I remember correctly,
all right, man.
Last year you had all sorts of troubles last year.
What's that? Or what?
Yeah, you didn't really know how to pick it. You was just you had no idea what really to say, and I had to kind of leave off you, and we had to help each other.
I think in the Pac-12 I picked Utah, I believe.
Yeah, you did. I did too. So.
Yeah, I think I picked. Wound up finishing second.
I think they did. Yeah. I think there's a new king in the horizon.
Who was in the?
There's a new guy in the horizon, and I think his name is Lincoln. Lincoln
we'll
Riley.
Do the Pac-12. Hey, the Pac-12. Looking at them, they got 5 or 6. They got 5 or 6 legitimate teams in the Pac-12 this time.
They do. They do.
They really do. So it's going to be a fun one to do. The Pac-12. Now, the bottom half, I'm not real sure. You got 5 or 6 legitimate teams, and you got Deion Sanders in Colorado that's trying to rise from the bottom. So the Pac-12 is actually going to be a fun one to cover August 1st. So we will do that with you first Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Hammonds will be on with me, and I'll have another one or two on, and at least one more, and we will preview the Pac-12 tomorrow night. We're finishing up SEC Media Days. So, y'all, good night. We will see you tomorrow night to finish up Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Tennessee at Media Days.